on a personal level, it's very difficult for me to be economically sustainable and to get my articles published. Because, look, people do not, unfortunately, the Israeli government and its supporters are smearing critics, even if they're Jewish, even if they're Israeli. They'll smear anyone who criticizes them, justifiably so, as being motivated not because of love of life or love of justice or aspiration for equality. They smear them saying, you hate Jews, you despise Jews, and that's why you criticize the Israeli government. Of course, there's some anti-Semites, and of course it's preposterous to suggest that a criticism of Israel is motivated by hatred of Jews. If you hate racism, that's the reason to condemn racism. And if you're being racist, that's the reason why you're being condemned. But because of this, let's say I am willing to suffer the slings and arrows. I know that I will be attacked for being the whistleblower, but I'm confident enough in what I believe in to do that. Great, but not every newspaper is. People have a budget, they've got a bottom line, and if they are smeared, if newspapers are smeared as being anti-Semitic, it looks horrible for them. So they are fearful of publishing people like me. So just as an example, a lot of the scoops that I've broken in recent years, I had to go to newspapers outside the country. One of the scoops I published, I had to go to a Nigerian newspaper to publish it. I had to go to a San Francisco newspaper to publish it. My last scoop, again, like a crazy, crazy story, scandalous story, I had to go to what newspaper, what news website? Cannabisculture.com. Now, I mean, I support marijuana legalization. Everyone has the right to alter their consciousness how they see fit. But is that really the appropriate, address? No, I mean, the story did relate in a way to marijuana, but primarily it was about racism and about how little Black Lives Matter in Israel. But I had to go to this website to publish it for a paltry couple $100, even though I'd spent months on it. Why? Because everyone else is afraid because of what it said, what it implied about how racist the Israeli government is. And so you can't live, if I worked for months on a story and only got paid a couple $100 for it, that's not sustainable. I'm not sitting on some kind of trust fund or anything. I don't have any other source of income. It means that I subsidize my own, that's my activism, is reporting on stories that no one else cares to or everyone else is afraid to write about, and donating my time to that story instead of investing the few hours that I'm being paid to, working on it for days and weeks, knowing that it's important that it gets out there. So my point is, it's extremely difficult to do this work, not because my life is threatened, not because that does happen too. Sometimes I'm threatened, but most of the time it's not that. Most of the time it's not a physical thing. I'm not worried that anyone's going to assassinate me. I'm not worried that when I leave the country or come back to the country that I'm going to be prevented or that my movements will be constrained in any way. No, the country is still mainly a democracy for Jews. It's not a democracy for non-Jews, but for Jews it's still mainly a democracy. So I'm not worried about that. But the government has gongos. I don't know if you know that term, like NGO, we know NGO, non-governmental organization. So a gongo is a government-organized NGO. There are lots of parastatal groups that work at the behest of the government who do its bidding, and one of their missions is to smear people like me. And so because of these gongos, it makes it near impossible for me to function to be financially or economically sustainable and to get those stories published. I have to beg newspapers to publish these stories. That's a ridiculous state of affairs. It shouldn't be this way. So those are some of the challenges that I face.